like to thank you for joining. To the first timers and to those of you who've returned, thank you. Before I go forward, I would like to give you a brief overview of arts, culture, and things in between. This is a program that features individuals who are gatekeepers of our culture and the arts. They're not only performing artists, but also teachers, advocates, and scholars who focus on the preservation of the arts and culture. When I say arts, I mean the different art forms as in visual, applied, or performing arts. For example, visual arts can include painting, sculpture, photography, and film. For applied arts, this can include architecture, as in designing and building or constructing, fashion design, working with different types of patterns of fabrics would be considered allied arts. So would be jewelry design, working with materials such as wood, plastic, metal, silver, and gold. Furniture design is also considered applied arts, working with different types of woods, how the woods are cut, how they are designed. Literature. Performing arts can include music, photography, film, theater, opera, drama, singing, and stand-up comedy. Now, when I mention culture, I'm really targeting what life means for a particular group of people. So for this program, it is inclusive to mean the various groups of individuals that embrace the way of life, looking at attitudes and behaviors. What is important to note is that as culture is mentioned, I'm really looking at how practices are passed from one generation to another. The things in between, with respect to the name of the show, Arts, Culture, and Things in Between. The things in between are lives issues that affect the execution of the arts and cultural practices. This involves both positive and negative experiences. So for this program that began Sunday, May 4, my first guest was Andrew Clark, an MC, singer, actor, cultural enabler, and founder of Brata Productions. And he is someone who hails from Jamaica. Last Sunday, which was the second week, the guest was Candice Thompson Zachary, a dancer, choreographer, cultural producer, and dance advocate who hails from Trinidad. I think I'll allow you to guess who my next guest is. Let's just meet him. Take it away.
I hear drums, black drums beating black history, and my blood melting the soul waves. My spirit pluck wings of strange rememberings, and my whole being run way to Africa. Africa, the land of the drum god, the kingdom of drums, the heaven of songs, paradise of tongues of thunder. I hear the drums and I remember I was an apostle of the drum god. I would beat in the morning to call the sun. I beat in the evening till the rain come down. I beat for me God, I beat for my tribe, I beat for Africa, my only pride. Drums!
Thank you. What a welcome and entrance. So my guest today is a self-taught Guyanese musician who has been doing this for 45 years. He is a performing and recording artist who plays the drums, keyboard, and the harmonica. In addition, he does poetry, and storytelling. As a musician, he plays in churches, especially on weekends throughout the New York City tri-state area, and sometimes he travels to Maryland and Atlanta. More importantly, he's known to play internationally. It is worthy to note that his music has crossed over to the Episcopal churches at their annual revivals in the 5 boroughs of New York City and Long Island. He is a contributor to the annual African Liberation Ceremonies and the Guyana Cultural Association's Folk Festival. This instrumentalist has released 5 CDs. They are spirit drums, revival drums, gospel drums, praise drums, which is a compilation of drums, poetry, and popular gospel music, and lastly, folk kwekwe drums, which is a collection of Guyanese folk and kwekwe songs. Ladies, gentlemen, and children, I take pleasure in introducing today's guests on arts, culture, and things in between, Winston Hoppie, fondly known as Jeggae, and I refer to him as the authentic one-man band. Jeggae, welcome. I would love to call you. I would love to call you Mr. Jeggae, but I know you would say to me, Jeganaga Mr.
Jeganaga Mr.
Okay,
right.
So I take that I'm allowed to just call you Jeggae for today. How are you, my brother?
Jeganaga Mr.
How are you today? Good.
Great.
So thank you for
I'm
coming
blessed.
on to this program. Really appreciate that you have taken the time to do this. And I hope that we can clarify some areas of your life that people tend to think it is the norm. For example, I know some folks don't know that your name is Winston Hoppie. They think that your name is Jeggae. So I hope that we can also talk a little bit about that in a minute. But my first question, and well, I have a statement, then I'll follow it up with a question. Many individuals may not know that you have had a career of 31 years with New York City. You have spent 5 years of those with the sanitation department as a shop clerk, and the other 26 with human resources administration. And you held multiple positions at HRA until your retirement in November 2019. To boot, you have an associate degree from one of my alma maters, the Borough of Manhattan Community College, and you have a bachelor degree from City College of New York and a master's degree in urban studies from Queens College. I know that while you were involved in your career with HRA, you found time for music. So my wonder is, while working for all these years, how did you find time to do your music? And how come none of these degrees, none of them, is in music? What's going on there, or the arts? Talk to us.
First, I must thank you for this opportunity to basically tell my life story. You mentioned Jeggae, and I actually got the Jeggae from my father. I'm not sure where he got it from, but I remember one time going back home on a little vacation, and my father was still living in Guyana, and we were both walking down the street, and somebody said Jeggae, and we both looked around, and they jokingly said to him, "I'll be talking about the young Jeggae, the real one. Use the old time Jeggae." So I guess I'm becoming the old Jeggae now, because my Those who know my father's passed on. And so I'm the old Jeggae. I have some grandsons now who also took the name as their middle name. So the Jeggae would live on.
Nice.
Going back to my career in terms of employment, I did start out doing some odd jobs, but officially when I started with the city was back in 1988 with the sanitation department, the shop clerk. I did 5 years, and then I did a promotional exam because there weren't enough opportunities in terms of promotion within sanitation. The city created a citywide list, and I was transferred and promoted over to HRA, where I did my last 26 years. And like you said, many different titles. I was a group supervisor. I was a trainer in the public assistance centers. I did disciplinary actions. I was part of the disciplinary unit. And finally, my last 11 years was in the contracts division of HRA, HIV/AIDS administration, where we did contracts with those vendors, nonprofit organizations that housed and fed the HIV clients. During that time, like you said, Rose, I was still able to find time to go to school because I felt that was important. I came to this country with some O levels, and I realized that I needed to do something more. It was a struggle in terms of school, work, and doing my music on the side, which I will get to in a minute. But I pursued and I kept going. I never took a break. I went even to summer school. In some summer sessions, I did 2 summer sessions just so I can try to get through my my degree by a certain time. So I started in 1988 at BMCC. I was able to finish there by, I think, 1991. 92, I went over to City College and did a bachelor's program. I spent 2 years there. And then finally in 94, I went over to Queens College to do my master's degree in urban affairs, urban studies. Like I said, it was a struggle. I remember some nights I would be playing at a function, and when the pastor is giving his word or somebody's making a tribute or something, I'll be making my little notes for class the next day or the next week. I kind of developed a little cheating thing, if you want to call it that. I would be assigned a program, let's say a chapter to read, and I would read like the very first part of the chapter, depends on how much time I have, and maybe the very last paragraph. And once I get into class, I might be the first or second one to stick my hands up and make a comment or answer a question, only on the part that I really read. So that was my class participation. And I was very famous to get up and say, and to add to the point that was made by and I would, so my class participation, so the professor would swear that I really read that whole chapter. Most times I didn't. So that's how I was able to get through school, because there was a demand also for the spiritual music in the, you know, in these Guyanese spiritual churches and later some other churches. The demand was there. There weren't many musicians playing that type of music at the time. I must give some props to Winston Wolford, for those who know him, that's the blind keyboard player. He was an influence in me playing the keyboard, because my very first instrument was the harmonica.
Okay, so let me stop you right there for a minute.
Okay.
I don't want you to get to the instruments yet. I want you to answer for me, why not a degree in the arts?
Oh.
Or theater? Why not?
Okay. I consider what I did and what I'm still doing a gift. Like you said, I play the harmonica. I play the drum, the djembe. I play the drum set, which I haven't touched in a while, but that's also one of my instruments. And of course, I taught myself the keyboard. Now, I cannot read nor write music. I play by ear, like a lot of musicians do. But so I was playing these instruments just from natural ability and from what I feel, and I know that it's a gift that was given unto me. And I choose to use that gift. Once I started working for the city, I realized that the city administered promotional exams. And even though you might have a degree, you still needed to pass the city promotional exams. However, I found out that if two of us have the same, let's say we pass the same promotional exam, but if I have a degree, it gives me a better opportunity to get that job, that new promotion, because I'm showing something more. So that's one of the reasons I kept pushing with with school, with college. In terms of how come it wasn't in the arts, I don't think the opportunity was there at the time. And I mean, my time was used up so much at the time that I didn't even think about doing anything else. Thus the natural ability was able to carry me as far as I think I needed to at the time. Later, and I don't know this might be the right time to mention that, but later, once I start exploring and moving on to playing music in a wider form in different churches, I started realizing that I might need to learn to read music, or at least to be able to identify certain things within music.
So if I'm hearing you clearly, Jeggae, the way that you learned music and the demand for the music that you were playing did not really, there was no push then for qualifications in those arenas that you played.
That's right. And that's so true. Mainly, even if you're an accomplished musician, once you go to play for the spiritual churches, it's different. You have to know the hymns, that's one thing. You have to know the type of air that they will be singing that particular hymn in. And different churches tend to sing it differently. So over a period of time, you kind of adapt to the different churches. And I don't know, maybe I can give you an example of what I'm saying.
I want to tease the audience a little bit.
Okay.
So we're taking them to the well, but we're not going to give them any water to drink right now.
Oh, okay.
So we're right there at the cusp, because I have something for you. I guess what can I say? You're just a true musician. You just want to play and get your trade done. But why don't we take a break and come back, and then we'll continue the conversation, because I have some tricks that I'm pulling out of my hat for you, Jeggae.
Wow.
Yes, but you'll
All right.
rise to the occasion. So let's take a quick break now, and then we'll come back and continue the conversation.
Great.
Okay, good. Jeggae with his folk that he plays so well. Talking about folk, Jeggae, I know that while you worked at HRA, you did some special projects. And in addition to that, you also did another project with Amtrak. Tell us about these two projects.
With HRA, Black History Month, there was always a big celebration. And I was part of that celebration for many years. In fact, even though I'm now retired, I'm invited to go back and perform and be part of the celebration. Normally will be even a full production, a full-length play, and talking about Black history, the African experience, the journey, the emancipation, the slave trade, and my part would be part of the production, and of course performing, whether it's poetry, drumming, singing, gospel. I even try to do some of your stuff, Rhoda. I try to do some dancing.
I would love to see that. That would be a sight.
Oh yeah. So that's where HRA. With Amtrak again, Black History Month. I have a friend who is a supervisor with Amtrak, and they do annually Black History Month celebration in Penn Station. So he recommended me, and I would go once a year for 3 hours. I would set up right by the Amtrak departure board, and for 3 hours I will do what I do. I have latitude of doing music, anything, oldies, calypso, folk songs, Kwekwe songs, drum poetry, whatever I feel like doing for 3 hours. They were impressed with my first year and they invited me back. So I've done it for the last 5 or 6 years with Amtrak.
So let me go a little further and I'll pay attention more to the Amtrak project. Now, for those of you who don't know Penn Station, it is one of the largest of a few subway stations in New York City, and it's a major thoroughfare. Now, the Penn Station that I know has so many tunnels and platforms and all of that, so it's busy.
Oh yeah.
And you're at a major place in the subway station where a lot of people are going and coming based on what you said. You're by
Right.
the board, right? The board that tells you arrival and departure of trains and all of that.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you were ever shy, and I'll tell you why. Shy as a performer there, smack in the middle of Penn Station, because as much as I performed for so many years, I sometimes play with the idea that I don't think that I can just break out and do a dance in the middle of Penn Station. I mean, in these times, especially now, with the different social media platforms and being in New York City, and everybody's hoping to be recognized, and because you don't know who is who, right? In New York City. So you want to just drop your beat, drop your steps, and hopefully there's some producer there who can see you and snatch you up or something like that, right? But I don't have the heart. And I think I'm shy in that way. How is that for you in terms of getting yourself as a performer mentally prepared to do such a project, which I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is different from many of the other ones that you've done?
That's so true. The thing is, it was actually the first time when I did the first one for Amtrak that I played in the subway. And like you said, you know, Amtrak, you know, they go to different states, different states. But there are also the local trains that pass through there, you know. So I actually played on the streets before, back in 1986, 87. At the time, it was just my drum and harmonica. If you notice now, I have a harmonica holder. But in those days, I had a PVC pipe drum, which I had a piece of steel rod welded to the drum, and it would be something like this, the drum. And the steel rod was welded to the drum, coming up like this.
Okay.
And at the very top, I had like the paper clip from a clipboard that was welded to that rod, and I used it to put the harmonica in there. And that's how I would lean over like this and play the drum. eventually somebody saw me and told me about this and actually sent this for me from Horner, from that Horner music that makes harmonica and harmonica holder.
Wow.
Now, to go back to playing on the street, I saw guys playing on the street and, you know, guitar, saxophone, drums. And I was like, I can do something like that.
Could you raise your voice for me a little bit?
And I said, I can do something like that.
Uh-huh.
So one day, I worked in Manhattan at the time, not with the city as yet. And I went to the store, I bought a portable amplifier. And I took it to work with me and my drum. So I went out, I remember, to 34th Street and 7th Avenue. That's by the Macy's. And I set up and I started playing my harmonica and my drum, and I started singing. And I got there about 6 p.m. And when I left that night, like around 9 p.m., when I got home, I had $58. This was where people was throwing money, you know, as I played. Now the thing is, I could have made more because there was a young man playing like a block away from me, playing just a drum set. He wasn't making as much, he wasn't drawing as big a crowd as I was drawing. So he came over and asked if he can join me. I said, you sure can, but wait. So I collected everything that I made, put it in my bag, and I said, whatever we make now, we're gonna split it. So we played together, we split it, and I went home, I had my $58. It actually was $58.25.
Mm-hmm.
And from then, I did that for about 3 months. I had certain spots like by the library on 5th Avenue and 42nd Street, by the World Trade, the little park where the Mary Lynch was right there on World Trade. I had my spots that I would go to and sit and play during lunch hours, in the evenings. And in those days, my regular paycheck was, my take home was about $115 a week. And on the streets, I was making like $58. So I decided that was a better paying job. So moving to Amtrak and doing that in the subway, I always wanted to play in the subway. But during that time, you needed to get a permit.
Right.
And I was kind of comfortable on the street because I didn't need to apply for anything. So I played in the street. I mean, the cops kind of chased me off in the street maybe twice. And one time, the cop chased me, said, get away from me, you have a permit? I said, no. So I went around like 3 blocks and I set up again. And I saw the cop coming again. I said, oh my God. So I tried to park. And he said, don't park. I'm going to give you a ticket. And then he stopped. He said, you know what? If I see you again, I'll give you a ticket. So for that day, I made like about 15 bucks. And I went home. I didn't want to take any chances. I didn't want to have problems with the cops. Right? So Amtrak, even though it was a different experience, and there was, like you said, people from all over the world, I tried to play a little variety of music for my little experience because there were different people passing through. I remember one guy passed one time and he stopped and he said, where are you from originally? I said, Guyana. He said, thanks for entertaining me. He said, but you need to turn your amplifier down a little bit because it's a little distorted. And he said, I'm a musician also, so just accept this as constructive criticism, you know. But that was my Amtrak experience. Yeah.
So I need some clarification. Now, the money that you're talking about, the $58 and change, those were tips.
Yep, yep.
Right?
Yep.
Now, with the contract, I'm using that word loosely, with a contract with Amtrak, was there a financial arrangement also with that? And I don't want you to go into how much, but I just want to, there was. Okay, yeah. Okay, oh, yeah. All right. So what you made on the side pretty much was on the side.
Oh, yeah.
So my other question to you is, what was the experience considering locations in the city that you play? In other words, did you find the responses from passersby being varied based on where you set up to play?
You know, I'm glad you asked that question. Before I answer that fully, one day I was right on 42nd Street by Fifth Avenue by the library. And one of my fellow Guyanese musicians passed by and saw me. And he stood there until I took a break. And he said in his Guyanese accent, he said, "Jeggae, boy, you got guts, boy. I wouldn't do that at all, boy." He said, "Boy, I gonna be kind of scared to do this, boy. I'm not gonna call any names." But that was a response from one of my fellow Guyanese musicians. The experience out there is the music, the drum. Some people would stop and they want to see if the drum was amplified. The only amplification I had was for the harmonica, something like this. I said, and with the microphone run into the little portable amplifier I had. The drum, of course, was just, but you know, the drum, the song would carry. And that's why the copper told me, "I heard you from 2 blocks away." And but he came, when I move around, he came and he found me the second time. But the experience there, excuse me, you can tell people from different cultures actually tend to show more appreciation. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I think because, oh, you know, I heard that before, I heard something similar before. I'm accustomed to that. So the response and the bigger tips were from people who might not have heard that type of music. And it was kind of unique. It was a harmonica and drum and just somebody playing. And playing some songs that they know, but playing it in a different genre, in a different style. Playing your slow bolero hit song, hear somebody playing it with a soca rhythm, you know, or your classical piece that somebody's playing in a reggae or calypso rhythm.
Yeah. Yep. Well, thanks for that. Thanks for that. Wow. You know, you have so much in you in terms of the experiences that you've had across the board. I think our viewership will be surprised with some of what you may be disclosing here. So I thank you, but let's take a break. Let's take a break and we'll come back and talk some more.
We're gonna make it somehow. We were better like a bone, but never break. Our father stayed here, I made the back by here. We're moving from here, they took this day. Are we giving up a country? Are we giving up a tree? Are we giving up a river? That's the last of me. And I don't want no sake, and I don't want to rise great. Not going for a ride, not to play that ride. Are we giving up a country? Are we giving up a hit? Are we giving up a river? That's the last of me. And I don't want no sake, and I don't want to rise great. Not going for a ride, not to play that ride.
So you had a good break there. A quick one, Jeggae.
Yep.
You had a quick one. So one of the things I've always said to you in a meaningful way is that you're the authentic one-man band. And I say that without apology. Because there are many one-man bands around, and these musicians usually sing and play one instrument, the keyboard. And since we've started talking, you have explained how your one-man band grew and how strangers have contributed to how you've refined the way that you've connected the various instruments that you play. You are someone who plays the harmonica, the drums, the keyboard. And for those of you who don't know, Jeggae just does not only play the djembe. He hinted earlier that he started with the drum set, right? That's what you said? Yep. Okay, Rose, don't make yourself a fool. With the drum set, I know you play the boom for the Ghana Masquerade. I know you play the kittle. And I have to mention those because for the most part, or generally speaking, when performing artists or when artists are engaged in their craft, the effortlessness that is seen when they're indulging, lookers on think that they can pick up a boom and a stick and beat the rhythm, and it's not that way, right? So I need to really say it's not just the djembe, you play other drums. So I've crowned you the authentic one-man band. As a self-taught musician, let's talk about how you got to playing the first instrument, whichever one it was, and how this experience transitioned to the other two instruments. In other words, for example, I'm thinking that because you're a countryman like Ivor Tom, I got to invoke Ivor Tom's name, who is one of Guyana's top sculptors. And I know his story started with sculpting mud as a country boy. I wonder if when you started, if there was maybe a tinning cup you were playing on, you know, or a bottle or something you were hitting with a twig or something that started you off. Tell us your journey from the first instrument that you played and then the transition to the others that you're now playing.
Between the harmonica and the drum, I think there's a competition because probably around the same time. I was given my harmonica at, I don't remember what age, probably 4 or 5. It was a Christmas gift. And you know, we're like all little kids, you get a harmonica, and the first thing you do is
right.
But after a while, you find like, oh, I'm hearing something that sounds like a tune. And you mentioned Ivor Tom, and I'm glad you mentioned that because he's my villager. We grew up together, and he used to play the harmonica, or he plays the harmonica.
He did?
Yes.
Wow.
So I was playing the harmonica, and I would, you know, find like I'm finding a little tune, but he was actually playing it before I did. For anyone looking, they would notice I'm playing the harmonica on the opposite side. For those, you know, music, the bass notes are on the left-hand side. And for the harmonica, it's the same, right? But I'm playing the harmonica actually from the opposite side, like a left-hander would play a guitar. Mm-hmm. So I'm playing my bass note on the right-hand side, right? Now, mm-hmm. Ivor Tom claimed that the reason for that is we used to play opposite each other. He would stand opposite me, and he claimed that he would try to teach me how to play the harmonica. So if you're opposite me, I would tend to go the same way with you, right? So if you go left, I would go left. But then actually I should have been going right because I'm opposite you, facing
right.
you.
So, but you guys are really doing the mirror effect.
Right. So he claimed that's how I started to play it on the wrong side. I think I just picked it up and started playing, and if I try to turn it the correct way, I can't do it, right? Wow. So that's the harmonica. Now the drum, I used to find myself hitting at any little thing I find. I was famous for getting blamed in the village, my village, Victoria, because I would go into the shops back in those days, and you go at the counter, and you will rap because most of the shops, the shopkeeper lived at the back, and the shop was right in the same building in front. But rather than rapping, I would be playing drums on the counters. And even when I got older and moved from the village, if somebody go on into that shop and do anything other than a regular rap, Sister Mary and Mr. Balu say, "Hey, Happy Bye, stop that stupidness from the counter." This time I'm miles away in another part of Guyana, but I'm getting blamed because that's what I did. We had formed a little band in the village we called the Whitefoot Stompers. And the band was made of 5-gallon drum, biscuit can, the Milo tin, the drum cover was cut and made into cymbals. The guitar, of course, was wood cut in the shape of a guitar with the window blind strings. And of course, the guitar song was coming from your mouth. And we had, like, for those you know from the village, Tiddy Toy.
What is that, Tiddy Toy?
Tiddy Toy was Tiddy Toy's last name was Adams.
Oh, okay, right? Okay, that was somebody's call name.
Yes, Ken.
Okay.
Some others from the village. The name Whitefoot Stompers is, of course, we were always bare feet. And our foot was white, from the dust. So it was Whitefoot Stompers. Then the name changed because over a period of time, the band became rusty because it's old metal cans. And if it gets wet, they start getting rust. So the name was changed to Rustic Combo. It was the Rustic Combo. And we played at the Four Corners every Saturday night. And if there was a little function in the village, the Rustic Combo would show up. Of course, there was no amplification. We would sing. We would make the songs with our mouths. Of course, I played the harmonica. And every once in a while, Tiddy Toy was the drummer. But we had no real drum like a djembe or anything like that. What I did once I got to high school, I had joined a small steel band. And when that band broke up, I took my, what we call the double force, the guitar pan was what I played. And I took it with me to my house, and the guitar pan became part of the Rustic Combo. I remember one year I played for the little local matrimony celebration, and we went from Victoria to Anns Grove on a donkey cart. For those who know, Tunka donkey cart. And we had our little procession, people joined in the celebration, and we marched down the street on the donkey cart with the band. So thanks for me, I didn't even remember that I also played a little steel band back in my days. So that's where the drumming and the harmonica, those two are really my first instruments. Of course, again, just playing it from my heart and from that gift that I think I was given.
Now, so the harmonica was the first, kind of sort of coupled with the drum.
Yeah.
When did keyboard come in?
The keyboard, now, before I switched from the drum, I never really had, like I said, a real drum. But if I see somebody with a drum, I can borrow it, I will borrow. But my little experience and I guess we'll talk about that, but in the Army, I was able to meet Jojo Felix Terrence. For those who know Jojo from Yoruba Singers, the flute player, big guy, about 7 feet, big guy, 300 and something pounds. God rest his soul, now he has passed on. He actually taught me how to skin a drum. So I made my first drum from the PVC pipe, which I mentioned earlier, and goat skin. So I had my first drum, and I still have that drum. It's in a little church that I have a relative who has a small church. The keyboard, whichever house I go to and they have a piano, I would always go over to it and I would start fooling around with the piano. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was feeling around, and I would find, like, I can find something that sounds like a song, or like later I got to know that it's a scale, like, right? Because I didn't know what I was doing then, but if you do re mi fa sol la ti do, because you heard people talking about that, whatever that meant at the time, and I would, and I'm like, wow, I can do that. But I never got a chance to own a piano. Back in those days, the more well-off family would have a piano, one of these old big piano in their homes. Of course, I didn't have that. Once I came to the U.S. and started living here, I bought myself a small Casio keyboard. And you could do limited stuff on it. But I bought that piano and I started to kind of fool around with it. I would go to church functions, and for hymns that I feel comfortable with, I would play. The keys were very small. The white keys were as small as the black keys, let's say, on this keyboard. And I wouldn't play certain hymns on it because I wasn't comfortable doing that. I wouldn't use my left hand because all I would do is play the melody. And over time, I find I can do a little more. And I know I'm not a keyboard player. I always have not a keyboard player. I do what I do. I'm not going to align myself with certain musicians, certain keyboard player, but for my style and what I do, like I said, I taught myself, but that was a little introduction and the progression with the keyboard.
So as you reflect on your journey in becoming the authentic one-man band, what I also heard was how there were so many individuals who were responsible for nurturing your crafts.
Yeah.
And that's really critical because I don't think too many people are doing that now. And for individuals who are good at what they do, like you are, you would hear similar stories that you learned from this person took you underneath their wing, or this person taught you this. I'm wondering, how are you passing the baton with this? Because for culture to be upheld, it has to be passed on. It has to be passed over. What is your role in making sure culture stays alive?
There was something I used to say that, and I still say that you have to be born with certain gifts. Some people would go out and learn or go to school to learn something, but some people are born with it. It's natural. Of course, there might be some technical things that you do need to be taught or to enhance whatever is that gift. So I used to say, well, I don't have to teach anybody anything because it's going to come to you natural if it's for you. And that's still partly true. Not partly, it is true. Mm-hmm. But like some people ask me, which one of your children are playing the music? I said, well, I have one of my sons who, he plays a little bit. One of my daughters, she plays the drum, and I didn't teach her anything. And that's true. I didn't teach any one of them anything. Now, my eldest son, he just bought a drum maybe about a year ago. And he said he's still trying, but he's looking for classes. My second to last son that lives out in Atlanta, he plays the drum, and I never taught him. My eldest daughter, she plays the drum. I'm not saying she plays it at functions but I'm sure if she had the opportunity, she probably can excel, just like my son also in Atlanta. But what I've been doing over the years is any opportunity I get, whether it's at a function, kids tend to, drums attract, in particular the djembe type, they attract kids. In fact, any kind of musical instrument. But somehow, something about the drum, it attracts them. Until after a while, they've hit it and then they say, oh, my hand is hurting, my hand, But, so any opportunity I get, a child might come and start hitting the drum, and I would say, well, no, you can't use, this part of your hand. You have to use this, and I would show them the basic. There is the summer camp that I would do like 2 classes every summer, and the
series of Ghana Cultural Association.
That's correct. Yeah, and the reception there is great. I mean, it gets very loud, and the kids, they enjoy it. I would take about 7 drums, any little drum I can find in my house. I do have about 7 around the house, and I would take them there, and they have just a good old time. And then at the end of the course, we pick a few of them who show some potentials, and they would do a presentation. What I do also, I have harmonicas. For those who play harmonicas, they tend to go bad after a while. When I say go bad, there might be one note that, is spoiled. I would try to fix it. But I would take those and I would steam them and clean them with alcohol. And I would keep them with me when I go to functions. And I would give them to little kids. And it's a joy where up to about a month ago I was at a function, and this kid is about 27 or so now. And you say, Brother Jeggae, you remember you gave me my first harmonica? Or you said my first blow. And there's so many kids that I do. And maybe over the years they might play it. Some of them might just get rid of it or say, you gave me one, in 1992. Can I have one now? I said, no, you can go to the store, jokingly, and buy one. But like I said, I always have some with me. Sometimes it's a new one, because you can find some for $10. It depends on the type of harmonica. And I will give them to kids. So that is my little way. Now, I don't venture trying to teach somebody to the keyboard, because I'm still learning myself. And I think if you're going to teach that, you need to know music. Some kids, like I said, will be natural, and they will play something. Maybe I can show them some little pointers on what I do. But in terms of the drums, I do that on a regular basis, whether it's in the summer camp, like that. Some people ask me, well, now that you retire, but maybe that's something we can do in the future.
Let me say this, as you were talking about how you pass this on to children, I want to raise your awareness to this, and it will come to fore once I mention it. You do a lot of playing for repasts.
Yeah.
And it's something about that drum music, when you're playing the drums especially, that people really get into themselves and they move.
Yep.
In addition to the movers and the shakers, there are some who would pick up a bottle or something, right? And come and stand next to you and try to create a combo, right? Like the rustic, right? Or some combo of the sort. And I've also been in spaces where I've seen you pass your drum onto somebody else who has asked you. And I think that in itself is nurturing somebody else in terms of passing on that gift, because you could tell sometimes that the person who's asking to play is not a drummer, but they feel in that moment they can lend something to playing. So I just wanted to raise your awareness to that, because I've seen you do it a lot of times.
I want to say something quickly on that. You know, there's some drummers who would not let somebody else touch the drum.
I know that.
Right? Somebody asks, I normally would ask them, are you a drummer? And of course, 9 of the time, 10 times they would say yeah. And sometimes once they start, I mean, you can tell in 5 seconds whether that person is a drummer, whether they're a good drummer, whether they can keep the time, you know, anything. And, you know, if they're messing up, then I would say, like, give me the drum. Because if you're actually playing at a function, you know, you want it to sound right. So you would indulge them. And most times there's somebody who does know something, who has potentials. And so I am not the one who will, you know, don't touch my drum. And now if somebody going to start messing with it and, you know, abusing the drum and, you know. I remember one time I was playing in Atlanta and this young lady came because I normally would rest my keyboard on the drum, right? I have a rubber cover that I put on the drum and then the keyboard rests on there. And then when I'm ready for the drum, I would lean the keyboard to the side. That's how I do it mostly. So the young lady came over, she said, why are you doing that to the drum? I said, what do you mean? She said, you're resting a keyboard on the drum. I said, yeah, this is how I play. She was like, you're not supposed to do that to the drum. She said, maybe you're not the first time she see me, she said, you're not a drummer. I said, well, you know what, give it about half an hour and we will talk. So I started doing what I was doing and then I switched to the drum. And she stayed from her corner and she did like this. And of course, we had this long conversation. She wasn't Guyanese. This long conversation after I was finished. And she said, oh, I never knew, and, you know, and she kind of congratulated me on what I was doing and my style and thing, but that's another story. Yeah.
Well, I want to stick with this drum for a bit because for artists, there is something that is innate that comes out when performing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something that you intend to come out of you, for you to display, for this, whatever is innate coming and becoming one with you during that performance. Mm-hmm. You're not planning for it to happen. You're not begging for it to happen. It happens. Mm-hmm. And it touches the people who are in your circle. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about that experience to you. And I know I'm talking artist to artist right now. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit of that experience for you, especially when you're playing the drums. Mm-hmm. What is happening for you, Jeggae?
I get very much involved when I'm performing, in particular when I'm doing the drum poetry. And also, I can tell you something. When I'm playing, let's say at a Thanksgiving service, I can play the harmonica and the keyboard sometime for an hour. And people would be there, you know, enjoying and clapping and singing and tapping their feet. But sometimes as soon as I turn to that drum, it's a different feeling. You can see people getting up out of the seat, start dancing, getting into the spirit. And that gives me more of this. I want to play. I want to tear this drum up in a nice way. But for me personally, and I've experienced it quite a few times, like sometimes I would finish performing and they would say like, hey, Jeggae, that wasn't you there, man. And I'm like, well, who else? It was me, you know. But I got to realize what they were saying. I had an experience about, it was in February of this year. And I was called by an adult care center on Farmers Boulevard in Queens to entertain some of the folks there. I said folks, it wasn't only older folks, there were younger folks there too. And I wasn't too sure what they wanted, because I know it was February, it was Black History Month and thing. And so I got there and I set up and I started playing some gospel music. And I got a feel of what was going on. So I went over to the person who asked me to play, and I said, is it okay if I do some poetry? She said, Jeggae, the time is yours, do whatever. And I started doing one of my pieces. And somehow, I don't know if it was the audience, it was me, because I've done that piece so many times before, but somehow I really got involved and got emotional when I was doing that piece. I'm talking about it now and I'm getting like, you know. I was wondering what it was while I was doing it and even after, because I've done it so many times before. I'm sure there were times when I felt like, wow, this was a good performance, you know. Sometimes you feed off of the, and maybe it was the audience there. It was about 35, 40 people there, but it was something. And I just got this feeling, and I was talking about the middle passage, and it really hit home, and I got emotional. I at one point there were no words. It was just me just drumming, and I felt like if I had tried to say something then, it would not have come out correctly. Probably you would have really started maybe crying. So I just had to keep drumming. And for those who have seen me do that piece, they would have realized, oh, Jeggae is doing this time is different. So the drumming went on for a while until I guess I kind of composed myself and then continue. But I was supposed to be there, they had said, for an hour. I wasn't rushing to go anywhere else that afternoon. I was there for about 3 hours. And there was something about, you know, just performing for those people. And so it happens, it happened more than once. I actually wrote a piece of somebody getting, for want of a better word, into the spirit while I was playing. And this was while I was back home. And that's one of the pieces I do. I don't do that piece a lot, but that's one of the pieces I wrote. The response from a young lady to the drum. And I put that in poetry.
Give us a line of that
poetry and song, really.
Could you give us a line of that poetry and song?
You want me to do that now?
Just give me a line or two.
The drum, the drum, the drum, the drum, the drum, the drum. All she want to hear is the drum. The drum, the drum, the drum, the drum, the drum, the drum. The drum man get weary and the rhythm get slow. But the girl start to shout out now. She lay down on the ground in front the drum. She heard that nice going wrong than wrong. She body get stiff and start to lift. Body come back down on it, touch the ground, and the only song coming from she tongue is the drum, the drum, the drum. I said the drum, the drum, the drum. Hey, the drum, the drum, the drum.
All right, thank you. This is a good time to take a quick break and come back. Thank you for that, Jeggae. We'll take a quick break.
Okay, we're back. And for those of you who are joining late, I'm Rose October, and I'm with my guest today, Winston Hoppie, aka Jeggae. I crowned him the authentic one-man band. Jeggae, thank you for all of this knowledge and information about yourself that you're sharing. This is exciting. So this part of our discussion really has me going because of my curiosity. You're involved in many community service ventures. You have been recognized by Brooklyn Arts Council, right? Which is an organization that keeps arts alive in Brooklyn. And they especially deal with folk arts. So they love you there, you and your drums and the drum poetry. You also play for the elderly at a nursing home pre-coronavirus. You're part of Ghana Cultural Association, the folk festival season as an instructor, as you mentioned earlier, in the summer workshop series, and you're a performer at Kwekwe Night and Family Fun Day. You're also involved in Guyanese spiritual churches, spiritual Baptist churches, and Episcopal churches.
Yep.
These are just a few of the areas of your community service. I will not put you on the spot and ask you to say which one brings you the most joy. I'm not going to do you that. However, I want to ask you about your experience with the churches as a musician. What are the different experiences in playing for the Guyanese Spiritual Church, the Spiritual Baptist Church, and the Episcopal Church? But before you answer that, sit on that for a bit. Before we took the break, you talk about this experience. And I think what you were short of saying is that it was a spiritual experience for you. And that spiritual experience is tied to that gift that you mentioned at the beginning of this interview that you have. And then you are playing in spiritual churches. I am curious to learn about your experiences there. What is expected of you? Who tells you to do what? How do you know what to do? And let me stop, because I would just keep asking questions because I'm so curious. I want to know. So tell us about these experiences that you have as a musician with the churches.
Actually, I started playing for the spiritual churches back in Guyana. Of course, at the time, it was just the drum and the harmonica. More so the drum, because the drum would kind of drown out the harmonica because there was no amplification. And if there was an opportunity to play next to a microphone, and of course, at the time, I didn't have like a holder for the harmonica. So maybe I hold the harmonica in just one hand and tap the drum, but it wasn't the same. Or you get somebody, can you hold this to me? So they hold the harmonica to my mouth, and I'll be playing. So, but I played for the spiritual church, but at the time it was mostly the drum and saxophone. There was no keyboard in those days, in particular with the spiritual churches back home. So I learned, I got that experience actually with the older generation in the spiritual life back home. Like I would want to say the original spiritual church. I even was around the Jordanite churches, which is the original spiritual church. This Guyanese spiritual church that we talk about actually came out from the Jordanites.
Do you want to tell folks, but just give folks a reminder of who the Jordanites were?
But actually, as a kid, I lived in Victoria, and my father lived in Agricola on 4th Street, or Cato Street as they call it. And the original Jordanite church, the one that I knew, was on 4th Street, like 3 doors from where my father lived, right across the street. And that was the spiritual church. And for those who know Elder Jordan, and the spiritual church, it came out from his name, Jordanite. And because his followers were Jordanites. And there's stories, you have to be baptized in the Jordan River. Of course, we were in Guyana, so we didn't get a chance to baptize in the Jordan, but there were followers. In my village, there were some Jordanite men, as you know, because most time it was the men who were elders in the churches. They grew their hair. In fact, we used to call them at the time gal man because they have long hair. They grew their beard. They wear the white robes. They always cover their head with those white kufi to this. And I started playing for those churches. And so I started learning the hymns from memory, the words, and even the number of the hymn, because they use mostly the ancient and modern Anglican hymn book. So the reverend, the mother, the elder would say, praise to the holiest in the heights. And Jeggae the choir would say, hymn number 172. Because they, for those who are not acquainted, they would be boxing and looking at the index. Or you would say, how sweet the name of Jesus song, and I would say 176. Or they would call another hymn and they say, Jeggae, which one is that by? And I said, but that one is not in the hymn book, that one is in the Sankey. And it's 574 in the Sankey. And they'll be like, oh boy, when you want to take up this eldership, boy.
So,
how
old were you then? How old were you?
When I started back home, 17, 18, around that age.
Okay.
For a short while then, because once I left the high school, I went to Bartica, for those who know Bartica, back home, and I was a teacher there for about 18 months. And during that time, I went to national service as part of the YBNCC, Young Brigade, and National Cadet Corps. And again, that was an opportunity to enhance the little cultural thing within me, and also the drumming. So I didn't get a chance to play much then for the spiritual churches. Once I moved from Bartica back to the village, I got involved more in playing for the churches. Then I went into the army. But once I got a break, whether it's weekend, whether it's holidays, I would get involved around the churches. Now, once I moved to the States, and being in New York City, now, New York City, Brooklyn, has, I think, more churches than anywhere you can think about. And when I first started, there were maybe only about 5 spiritual churches, as we call them, Guyanese spiritual churches.
What year was that?
Say again?
What year was that?
It was 1984, 85.
Okay.
So by then, I knew most of the hymns. Like I said, I was only playing the drum and the harmonica. So from experience over the years, you know which are the popular hymns. You know which hymn would be sung at what part of the service, because these were like Thanksgiving services, birthdays, anniversaries, somebody got a promotion, somebody just said, I just want to give thanks. I just feel like giving thanks for something they might have received, or they just feel blessed and they want to give thanks. They invite friends, and they want some music. So there are certain hymns that will be sung at the beginning, the middle, and the end, and I can kind of anticipate what the hymns would be. Or sometimes they would start, and I would be kind of softly in the background playing something. And the mother would say, by Jeggae, how you know that is the next hymn I wanted, by? I said, by you got spirit, by, you got eyes to see things. And I would just smile to myself. But so the experience there, it comes with time, because one church would sing the hymn with one ear. The other church would sing it slightly differently.
Give us an example. Give us an example of that. Could you play something, sing something, tell us how it's done?
Even right in the, and then there's a difference also between the Guyanese spiritual churches and the spiritual Baptist churches. Okay. So the Guyanese spiritual church would do the original God over here. Let me tell you that again. And you recognize as oh God, our help in ages past. Right. But then you might go to the Spiritual Baptist Church and they would say, oh God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal hope. Now it's the same 165 in the ancient and modern, right? But they would sing it in a different ear, even within the Guyanese spiritual churches, right? So again, I said, you know what this church likes. And some church would say, well, Jeggae, vamp it for me, boy, vamp it. So maybe the very same hymn would be, in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal hope. So some churches want it like that. Some would say, no, just play it straight. Don't give me no vamp. I don't want no lick up. Maybe till later.
I think I would want the vamp and the lick up.
For some churches, they want it towards the end. Because they want to keep it nice and mellow at the beginning. Because then, you know, people would throw down and heise up and lick down, as we say sometimes. Because some people really get in the spirit and almost can't control themselves. Knock the table upside down and mess up the whole service. Because remember, these services, the tables set like an altar. And under there are lights and water and sometimes fruits, depending on the type of function, and or food, sometimes vegetables and ground vegetables, leafy vegetables, sometimes on the table, sometimes under the table, around the table. And some of the same stuff will be shared at the end of the function. Right? So, like I said, within the Guyanese churches, there's some variation. The older members tend to like the old traditional way. Of course, they also like a little bit of the bouncy music, and not forgetting the drum. Spiritual Baptists, sometimes they don't want you to even play, because they would just sing and they hum, and they use their feet, they use their hands. Give you a quick experience. Years ago, it must have been around 1988 or so, I was asked to play for a function at a Spiritual Baptist, mostly Trinidadians. And but I had another engagement, and I said, I'll be there, but I'll be late. The person lived on the first floor in this big building. When I got there and I opened the main door, like in the foyer of the building, I heard this music, and I said, oh, she got somebody to play for her. Once I got to the apartment, opened the door, there was no musician in there. No drummer, no keyboard, nothing. And that was my first experience playing for Spiritual Baptist. I walked in there and I'm looking around for the musician. Then I realized it was voices, hands, feet, and whatever they were singing at the time. There was this guy in the corner going, boom, 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 and it sounded just like a bass guitar. And then there was somebody else over there, and it was like a rhythm. And then somebody else was clapping and somebody was stamping. The beauty of it though is once at the time I had my PVC pipe drum. Once I added my drum to that, whew, I wish I had a recording of it. You know. But yes, so that's the Guyanese spiritual churches, the Spiritual Baptists. And then later, you mentioned the Episcopal churches. I was invited to play at a church at a revival years ago, St. Mark on Brooklyn Avenue, up by Union and Eastern Parkway. And I got there. For those who know, I can call some names, the Nike, Honest Edwards. And the revival was about 3 or 4 days. And I'm like, when I'm going to the Episcopal church, you know, the music is different. But I got to find out that the members are 95% West Indians. And even though in the Episcopal church or the Anglican church, as we say, they play the traditional way. But over the years, they've evolved. And here I come with the keyboard, with background rhythms and the drum. And once we started playing, I mean, they got up, they enjoyed it, they invited us the next year. And from then, I started moving around to Episcopal churches in every borough except Staten Island, even out in Long Island. And I still do an annual revival with the Episcopal churches. Even this morning, even with the new wave of what we're doing now, on Zoom and on Facebook Live, I was part of a regular Sunday worship with St. Stephen and St. Martin, Father Donaldson, who loves this, if I want to call it this type or this kind of music. What I also learned though is every once in a while, somebody would bring the hymn book from, let's say, from the Episcopal church. And they would say, well, you know, this hymn. And I might look at the name of the hymn and I'd be like, good. In many cases, I know the hymn because I know it from heart. But they're trying to give me the music. I cannot read music. Or it might be a strange hymn, but it's sung in an air that I know. Now, if I was able to read that music, it wouldn't be a problem because, oh, that's what it is. You know? So I would pull somebody from the choir in the corner and say, can you hum this hymn for me? And they'll hum it and I'll be like, right, I got it. Or I would get on a little paper and I would write the air that I know, so I will remember that this is that hymn, this is how it's sung. And that's how I would get by. Or they would hum it for me and I would take a couple of seconds, I would pick it up because I'm playing by ear and then I know what I'm doing. So that was a challenge with the Episcopal / Anglican church. I played also in the Methodist church. My ex-supervisor is from the Methodist church and she invited me. So Methodist, Episcopal, I've gone to the Catholic church, mostly for burial services, and the family member for the deceased, they would say, just go up there and give us 10 minutes of praise and worship. Give us something that we are accustomed to. But for those who know, the Catholic Church also has been evolving, and yes, it's not strange for this type of music and the drum also in the Catholic Church.
Yes. I think it depends on who the priest is.
Very, very true.
It
Yeah.
really depends on who the
Yeah.
priest is.
Yeah.
And to some
There's been a little
extent,
push back every once in a while. Most time not from the priest. Sometimes it's from the organist in the church.
yeah.
Yeah.
And also the followership.
Oh yeah.
Because I remember when my mom was alive, God rest her soul, she belonged to a Catholic church, a big Catholic church. And for the Catholic churches to stay alive now, they've merged. So 3 of them have merged into one. And I remember that they had this young priest who had taken over. And he used to do a little bounce on the altar. And the old timers hated it.
Mm-hmm.
Hated it.
Yeah.
And they couldn't accept his innovation that he was bringing to his style of conducting services. But I want to ask you about 2 pieces before we take a quick break and come back. You mentioned in your bio about the revivals of the Episcopal Church. And in talking about how you have evolved as a musician and being a part of the churches, you mentioned about catching spirit, right?
Yep.
And I really want us to zero in on that, because back in Guyana, I remember hearing somebody catch comfort.
Mm-hmm.
They use it very loosely. And to a point, catch spirit is used loosely.
Yep.
But there is some spiritual grounding there. It's not just somebody catching spirit or catching comfort. Without being an elder in the church, and if you are and I don't know, I apologize. Tell us, what is your understanding of when someone is, and I'll use your phrase, someone catches the spirit?
In the church, actually, I'm referred to, and I think I coined the phrase. One time I went home and vacation, I came back, and somebody in the church asked me something, and I said, jokingly, I said, I went home and I was ordained, which really wasn't true. I said I was ordained, and he said, ordained to what? I said, an elder. And he said, yeah, I said, arch elder. Now, some of the titles in the church, we have sister, brother, elder, mother, sometimes you say father, bishop, abbess, archabbess, archbishop. So I coined the phrase arch elder, because that wasn't a title that you heard. You never hear arch elder, archbishop, or elder. So I coined, so I said, I'm the only arch elder in New York State, in fact, probably in the world, but there's no arch elder. And it kind of stuck among the spiritual church. People refer to me as arch elder. I am one of the older musicians within the spiritual churches, in particular in the Guyanese churches. Older in terms of age is one, and in terms of being around it much longer. Some of the old stalwarts have passed on. Mr. Edwards, that's Flantis's father, for those who know Flantis. Winston, Blind Winston, Prophet, Paddy, Sabu, Raymond, I can go on. Those are the older guys that have passed on. So I'm one of the elders now. And in terms of within the church, they refer to me, like I said, as arch elder. Now, I gave you the experience I had when I was playing, recently in February for the function where something happened. And it's kind of hard to explain because it's almost like beyond your control.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't invite this thing, this feeling. It happened. Now, people have asked me before, is what has happened with these people when they said they're catching spirit by? And sometimes I would say, well, why don't you go and ask them? No.
Mhm.
But it's you ever sit and you're listening to music, or you've at a party, but there's one song that plays, you be like, oh God, let me tune them by you,
Mhm.
God.
Yes.
And you just want to get up and dance, or you just want to sit there. You don't want nobody mustn't say anything. Just let the song play, and you know, so you can soak it in. Or somebody you want to dance, you want to get up, you want to express. So even though I have never danced in the spirit, I realized I played and I felt something while I was playing. I am thinking that this is the experience for that individual, like I spoke about when I did that one verse, but the drummer man get weary. In fact, the first verse of that is she go up on the bed, the drum in she head, she go up on the chair, the drum in she ear, the drum in she eye, this ain't no lie, the drum in she mouth and the drum all about. It's like the drum is taking over.
Mhm.
I don't matter where you go, whether it's the chair, the bed, on the floor, it's like there's something. And we know the drum can send signals. You know, the drum was used to communicate.
Raise your voice.
The drum was used to communicate. And some people, they might hear a strum of a guitar and it would send something.
Mhm.
I think it's the same thing with the drum, right? It doesn't have to be the drum only. It might be a song, like I said, that was playing,
Mhm.
and maybe it's a beat in that song or something. And some people would manifest differently. People would hear the drum and would sit there and start laughing uncontrollably, or just singing to the top of the voice, or they would just dance.
Mhm.
And even when the music stops, they will continue. And for others, when it stopped, they would stop. But in some cases, they would continue. And some people would say, "Oh, Jeggae, don't stop, don't stop." And just bring, and from experience, I realized you have to kind of bring it down slowly and fade it, right? And bring them like back to reality, for want of a better word. But it is something that happens. And some people are dealing with certain things, and they just let themselves go. And sometimes it's a cleansing.
Mhm.
It's a new birth. It's a revival. They after they express themselves, and people have come to me and said thank you. And at first I would say, like, for what? To myself. But then I realized, it was something they were able to get rid of,
Mhm.
or something they receive. And, you know, it's different for different folks.
So, you know, I'm glad that we had this conversation so that people don't think of quote unquote catching the spirit as something that's frivolous, because it's meaningful. It's quite meaningful for individuals who experience this. Now, we are getting ready to go to a break. And I know that doing the revivals is a hot button for you. If I had to ask you now on the spot, I'm pulling one of those out of my back pocket and say to you, Jeggae, give us a part of your favorite song that you do at the revival. What would it be?
I am blessed. I am blessed. Every day of my life, I am blessed. When I wake up in the morning, till I lay my head to rest, every day of my life, I am blessed. I am blessed. I am blessed. Every day of my life, I am blessed. And when I wake up in the morning, till I lay my head to rest, every day of my life, I am blessed. Wave your hand if you know you're blessed. Wave your hand if you feel you're blessed. Put up your hand if you know you're blessed. Put up your hand if you think you're blessed. Touch the screen if you know you're blessed. Touch somebody if you know you're blessed. You are blessed. You are blessed. Every day of your life, you are blessed. I want to wake up in the morning till you lay your head to rest. Every day of your life, you are blessed. Every day of your life, you are blessed. When you could listen to arts and culture and things in between, you are blessed. Hallelujah.
Take a break. Let's take a break and come back. That was great, Jeggae. I loved it. Loved it. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take a break and come back.
More than one thing, a shelter from me, and a strong cover from the enemy. Oh, hallelujah. When my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock, the desire in life. Oh, the desire in life. It's raining all around me. I can feel it. It's a lot of rain. Can you feel a lot of rain? Go right on, Jesus. Please send more rain until we are wet, 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 wet. So, how you feeling? Yeah. So, tell me how you feel, wet, wet, wet. So, we got the victory. Hallelujah.
So, wow. You all right, Jeggae? You all right over there?
Yes, yes, yes.
Good. You're getting quite a workout.
Yeah, it's good. I got the one of them spiritual thing. I'll be there for 5-6 hours, so you know.
Oh, so you're good for this. You are
Oh,
good
yeah.
for this. So I just want to thank those of you who are just joining us on arts, culture, and things in between. My guest today is Winston, Hoppie, also known as Jeggae. If I get my way, I would put Mr. in front of it and he would tell them, Jeggae Naga
Mister.
All right. So I have the privilege of calling him full mouth today, Jeggae. So we're winding down. We have about 15 minutes more left. And I'm going to put you on the spot right now, Jeggae. We mentioned earlier at the top of the show that you're a retiree. You're living the life of the rich and famous now as a retiree.
Okay.
So as a retiree, you're striking off items on your bucket list. One of them that you hinted to throughout this discussion was that you can't read music. Right? You've hinted at that. And I know that right now you're learning to read music and you've just started on this journey. Considering your body of work, you've been in the business 4.5 decades and counting. You've been in the business 4.5 decades.
Mm-hmm.
Why now? I mean, why now? And I'm trying to understand why now.
Well, for one, there is more time now.
Okay.
Actually, my official retirement date was November 19th of last year. But I actually came off in March, 1st of March, 2019. So I've been home for over a year. So I got more time myself. I had a lot of time that I used. So I was basically on payroll for 8.5 months before officially being retired. Now, once I officially retired in November, I said, you know something, this is something I wanted to do for years. And I'm going to start. So of course, I got teach yourself books and kind of sought out a school. And like I said, I've gone to some churches and they would put a music sheet in front of me, and I'll be like, okay. But once this starts, I know the air, forget about the sheet. So why now? It's more time. It's one things on my bucket list, but it is a challenge. For those who typed before you type, you were using, let's say, your 2 or your 3 fingers picking, and you got pretty good at it. After a while, you knew where the keys were, and sometimes you don't even have to look, because your fingers tend to have memory, your fingertips, and they know where certain things are after a while because you're doing it. But then here you are in typing school, and you're learning the ASDF semicolon LKJ.
Hello.
And it slows you down because now you have to do it the right way. And then you're not supposed to look because you're supposed to just, the fingers. Now they are the new memory for the fingers learning those keys. It's the same thing also with music. So my challenge, now the advantages, I've been doing what I do for so long that I have learned certain basic things over the year. The disadvantage or the challenge is to get out of the old wrong way of doing it.
Yes.
And while I'm learning, it's too early to get out. So when I leave a class or when I finish my practice and I go on weekends to play on my regular little gigs, I'm back to my old style because I'm not ready to do it the right way yet. But it's good to have the combination of both. So, like I said, the challenge is, okay, now I'm supposed to use this finger on this key and not that one. But, it's a learning process. I thought it was going to be like, a couple of months. No, this is actually years. So I can see myself doing this, like learning, and I'm talking about doing what I'm doing, but still learning music for another 5-10 years. And I know I will still be learning.
How long have you been attending your classes? How long?
It's once a week, 45-minute session.
When did you start?
I started in November.
Okay.
The onus mostly is on you to practice. When the class, which is actually virtual now for the last month and a half or so, it's some instructions. You're not like coming to class to practice. Right. It's instructions and giving you fine points, certain things, and then you go home and you do the theory and you do the practice.
Right. As you're talking, I don't want to sound pessimistic, only because of what you said in terms of your craft being one of practicum that you've done for all of these years, that you've taught yourself how to do.
Right.
And now in your retired years, right, you are trying to reinvent the wheel, for the lack of a better phrase, in terms of learning a new way, learning a different way of approaching your craft. It's bittersweet. It's bittersweet because what I'm hearing is the bitterness being, I've been doing this for 45 years and I'm taking my class and I'm going back to a gig, and then I go back to the old ways and forget everything about the class.
Yep.
The sweet is, this is something that I knew I had to do. This is something I always wanted to do because I think it brings some level of pride as a musician to know that you can now read music, however little. So I see there being a real challenging balancing act for you, as you really infuse the new knowledge from learning how to read music and being able to stand up and say, I can read music now, and really fuse it with your self-taught talents. How are you going to merge that? And I have a feeling that something wonderful is going to come out of it, because you'll be able to use your way of doing your crafts while melding some of what you've learned the right way into it. Thus, really improving on who you are as a musician. So I really am optimistic about this journey that you're going through right now and its impact on your career as a performing artist. So, what does the future hold for Winston Jeggae Hoppie, the authentic one-man band?
You know, as like you say, as a retiree, I had this big plan. You know, I'm gonna cut down on this weekly playing, and I'm gonna travel. You know, I've been doing this, you know, the music and school and work for, well, the city was 31 years, but there's some years before that. And you know, it took away from family. There were a lot of family events that because I'm a man, I give you my word, like Rose, I'm gonna play for you on Sunday. And I told you that 3 months ago. But then last month, a family member said, well, you know, we have so-and-so going. I said, oh, man, I'm sorry, you know, I'm doing something for Rose on that same day at the same time. So a lot of family events I had to miss. And I'm like, I'm going to cut back. But it seemed like every year I was doing more and doing more. And you know, support from family, from my wife, and you know, she would say, you know, sometimes you got to cut back. And the funny thing is, some of the people, and I'm not talking about family now, some of the people that you play for, they would say, oh, you're pushing yourself so much, you got to cut back, but you're busy tomorrow? Or you're busy next week? You know, but again, like I said, that was one of my plans. Oh, I'm going to travel. I'm going to visit the grandkids. You know, they have grandkids in Atlanta, in Maryland, in Jersey. So I'm going to travel. I'm going to go spend a couple of days at this one, a couple of days at that one. Or I'm going to play weekends. But Monday I'm gone, and I'm coming back Friday to play. But then the nursing home kick in, and well, COVID kind of put a halt on everything. We know this won't last forever, so that's still some of my plans. But I love what I do, and we're talking a lot about playing at the churches, but of course, the cultural events, the emancipation functions, the revivals, like I said, Caribbean Heritage Month, you know, different activities that come up during the year. Even in the church Passover, I have one of my Panamanian churches that I do something for, and I get to find out that on December 8th is a special day for the Holy Virgin Mother, the Mary, and there's a special celebration. So I have to save that date for them every year, you know.
So you're still calendaring events?
Say again?
You're still calendaring events?
Oh yes, and I do that from one year to the next. It's automatic. I put these churches or these functions back. This church is going to do it. This, so somebody else called, but no, that's an annual event for so and so church, or that's an annual event for GCA. You know, don't ask me about Friday night, the Labor Day Friday, because it's gone. That's Kwekwe night. You know, or don't ask me about Memorial Weekend because I'm in Atlanta for their the Guyana Association in Atlanta for their celebration. So those are annual events. Of course, school and the music, and just try to enjoy life.
Good, good. I'm so happy to hear that you threw that in, because it sounded like the calendar got fuller in retirement, although you were talking about pulling back, throttling back, and all of those good things. But I'm glad to hear that you are also including enjoying life, really having fun with life in the middle of it. We are winding down, and Jeggae, I really thank you for sharing who you truly are with the folks who've joined us, because I am sure that many who are watching have gotten a different take, or they've learned something else about who Jeggae is. I want you to just give me a couple of minutes of your choice, and then I'll come back and just wrap this up quickly. So as my honored guest today, the authentic one-man band, Jeggae, give us a piece, something to remember you by, something sweet.
I, the tree, you cut me down, trim me leaves, me limbs, dig out me guts, me sap, and goat, me friend, you kill him, dry the skin, and use the skin to cover me. Yes, I, tree, and goat is company. Together we make song, sound of the drum. Born in Africa, resurrected in the Caribbean, North America, South America. When you hear the song, it makes you want to move. Drums! Can you hear the drums? Can you hear the drums? Drum of Africa! Drums! Drums of India! Drums of Guyana, the masquerade drums. Drums! Comfort drums! Comfort music in my blood. Like a crazy moving flood, black brothers and sisters all in white, twisting and turning in a flickering light, half-naked drummers, pouring sweat, pounding drums till out of breath, saxophone blowing sweet, jarring drums in wild beat. Faster, faster the drums they pound, bodies like snakes on the ground, riding, rolling on the ground. Caught in the fury of the song, the drums go softer, softer still. Bruised bodies rise. Sleep. Staring with vacant eyes. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Wow. Jeggae. Thank you. Thank you. Please allow me to say Mr. Jeggae for one time. So, ladies and gentlemen, children and all, thank you for joining us at Arts, Culture, and Things in Between. We are also on Facebook, so please check out our Facebook page. And as I wrap this up, I have to say a special thank you to Raul De Silva of RDE Pros, who is responsible for bringing the technical work to you, from me to you, bringing us together on Zoom, on Facebook. Raul De Silva, I sincerely thank you, my brother. I really appreciate what you're doing in the back end of so many of the Zoom and other platforms. And I know you prefer to be in the back, but I just have to bring you forward by mentioning your name. I sincerely thank you. And again, to the viewership, thank you. And most importantly, to you, Jeggae. I appreciate you, my brother. Love you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone. See you next week.